Well, good evening, everyone. My name is David Legg, one of the Associate Deans of the School of Arts and Sciences. I'd like to welcome you to the 32nd installment of the Distinguished Lecturer Series sponsored by the School of Arts and Sciences. We have a very nice crowd tonight. Glad to see you all here. Here to introduce our speaker is Elaine Blakemore. She is the chair of the Department of Psychology, which is the host department on our campus. Here she is.
It's terrific to see all of you here, and I'm certainly delighted to welcome you and to introduce to you Dr. Mark Cummings as the 2005 Arts and Sciences Distinguished Lecturer. I'm just going to say a few things about Dr. Cummings, and then hopefully he'll spend most of the time talking. Professor Cummings earned his bachelor's degree in social and behavioral sciences from the Johns Hopkins University in 1972 and his master's and doctoral degrees from UCLA in 1973 and 1977. He began his research career as a research scientist at the National Institutes of Health. From there, he went to the University of West Virginia in 1985, where he quickly moved through the ranks from assistant professor to professor in the astonishingly short period of 5 years. He came to Notre Dame from West Virginia in 1996, where in 2001 he was named the Notre Dame Endowed Chair in Psychology. Professor Cummings' research focuses on the social development of children and the impact of parental and family functioning on children, with a particular focus on the effects of parental conflict, parental anger, and parental depression on children's development. He is the author of 7 books and monographs and well over 100. I stopped counting when I got to 100, but there were a lot more. Articles and book chapters on various aspects of children's social development. His research has been and continues to be funded by several national funding agencies, but most especially by the National Institutes of Child Health and Human Development and the National Institute of Mental Health. Not surprisingly, Professor Cummings has accumulated many honors and achievements over the course of his career. I couldn't possibly mention all of them, but will note only a few of them tonight. He's been invited to give keynote addresses at many scientific meetings in our field and is or has been on the editorial board of virtually all the major journals in developmental psychology. He's a fellow in several professional organizations, including Division 7 of the American Psychological Association, which is the developmental psychology division. His own colleagues at Notre Dame and at West Virginia have honored him with both research and teaching awards, which is quite astounding. We are indeed fortunate to have this opportunity to hear a scholar as distinguished as Dr. Cummings. Please join me in welcoming him to IPFW.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm going to cover several different topics tonight. Can everyone hear me okay? Relating to particularly marital conflict in children and families. And start out talking about some basic facts, go through some recent things we've learned, give you some idea of how we go about learning what we do, which might be some interest to you, since it seems like a kind of topic that might be hard to study. And it is, potentially. But I'm interested in how we do that. And then we'll talk about some recent directions in research, find some cross-cultural findings, and some of our applied work, and how we work to make these findings available for individuals in the community so they can learn some of the findings that we've discovered about marital functioning, and parenting, and children, so it could be beneficial to families. So at the outset, we did the lights first. We have some overhead, so we need to dim the lights. First, I'd like to talk about, acknowledge some of the people that work in our group at Notre Dame. give some technical adjustments here. Oh, yeah. So nothing.
I'm having trouble making this microphone.
Yes. It's not doing anything.
Okay, well, I think I'll go with more of the verbal presentation at this point. In any case, one point I want to make is we have quite a number of individuals contributing to our work. We have various individuals who are faculty, postdoctoral individuals, and we have various graduate students. We have a really team approach. We have faculty, postdocs, maybe 8 or 10 graduate students at any one time. And we also involve many undergraduates in our research. And there's various benefits of this for us and for the undergraduates. They're involved actually in working with the families, involved in presenting papers at conferences, and we have maybe 25 or 30 a semester. So it's really a team effort. We're fortunate to have facilities that allow us to work in a team atmosphere in multiple projects at the University of Notre. So if we can get the overhead, you can see some of the names I'd like to acknowledge the people involved at this point. But the first question is, why study marital conflict? Why study marital conflict in youth development? What would be some of the benefits of that? And really, parenting in the sense of promoting children's well-being is more than just parent-child relationships. There's a tendency to think of parenting typically in terms of your own relationship with your child. Certainly that's very important. But the quality of the marital relationship between the parents is also very important. And factors in the quality of parenting you provide for your child. So ideally in the family, one looks at the parenting relationship, but also at the relationship between parents. The quality, actually, the two are interrelated. The quality of the marital relationship is strongly related to the quality of the parent-child relationship. In fact, we really can't separate the two. So if the marital relationship is functioning at a high quality level, this promotes a positive relationship between the father and the child, the mother and the child. So it's really part of the picture. And another reason to study marital conflict in youth development is that it's a strong predictor of the health and well-being of individuals in the family. Marital conflict is actually one of the strongest predictors of adults seeking psychological services. When a marital relationship has problems, this is a predictor of adults seeking help with psychological problems. It's also one of the strongest predictors of children's well-being and adjustment. So how well the children are functioning as well. So marital relationship, marital conflict is an important part of the family picture, even though it's not necessarily recognized that as often as one would like to represent the nature of family relationships. It is an important element. Marital conflicts related to children's academic performance, mental health, and even sleep problems. One of our recent studies we found that when there's a lot of conflict between the parents, it affects children's sleeping. And sleeping is related to their adjustment in school as well as in your own personal well-being. So there's a variety of reasons to be interested in this topic. And we've been attempting, Notre Dame has been playing a role in pioneering some of the new directions of understanding the broader family relationships and having marital conflict and parenting and children's well-being. And I want to mention some of the findings at the outset. And really the overall goal, though, I think is important to emphasize, and that is we're trying to foster, through research, through evidence, building stronger families. Building stronger families and marriages to help children grow up healthier and happier. And these relationships are very important for children. And so we we're finding more and more evidence this is an important direction for understanding how to help children. Now, we've really been pioneering the impact of marital conflict per se on child development. Now, we think of marital conflict as a negative, okay? It's something that it would be to be avoided, or is discord would be a problem for the family. But actually, that's not really a fair characterization. Conflict in the family can be very positive for the relationship between the parents and for the children. It depends on how you handle conflict, not when you have conflict. And really, conflict is inevitable. If you think about it, we always have conflict. Now, some people might think, well, I don't have conflict. Well, the garbage needs to go out. Do you always agree to do it? Or when you need to do chores around the house, or run errands, do you always agree to it? Even if you do agree to do it, are you happy about it? If you agree to do it, but you're not happy about it, that's a kind of conflict. It's a negative feeling. If you think about examples in your relationship between parents, there are everyday examples all the time of potential differences and conflicts, which is fine. It's normal and potentially healthy. The problem is the issue is how to handle these differences and how to handle them in a constructive way. So while we know for a long time it's been known that destructive conflict harms children, we're finding at Notre Dame and other researchers are finding in recent years more and more evidence that constructive conflict actually benefits children and it benefits the marriage. Avoiding conflict doesn't help the marriage. That's actually one of the more negative things one can do in a marriage, is avoid issues that need to be discussed. That can be more destructive than actually openly having a disagreement. So, but constructive conflict actually teaches children how to handle everyday relationships. We all have differences of opinion in our everyday relationships. We need to learn how to do that better. And parents are an important model for children in that positive regard with regard to conflict. It actually can benefit children to see conflict. It's not just that it's important to avoid negative outcomes. Positive ways of handling conflict can benefit children. Now you might be thinking, well, how can one do this? How can one study at a differentiated level how to handle conflict for the sake of the children? Better constructive conflict for the sake of the children, and differentiate that from destructive conflict. We've been really working on various ways to do this, and it's a difficult challenge how to handle conflict, how to study marital conflict in children. You can't just bring parents to the laboratory and say, have a conflict, and then see what the kid does. I mean, that would be unethical to do that. So we've developed various ways to do this. Now, I'll talk about one of our ways in a little bit, sort of a new direction in using diaries, training parents to report on family conflict in the home and children's responses. But there are other ways of going as well. You bring them to the laboratory and observe, videotape parents having a conflict, discussing every issue, and then say, would you give permission to show this conflict to the child? And if they give permission, then you can show that, ask the kids, remove that from the actual situation, but then knowing it's a real conflict, how would you respond if this were your parents, and what would you do? Another thing we do is we have actors act out various scenarios of everyday conflict. We have some scenarios with us. I don't know if we look at the video up and running to show this. We've had professional actors act out everyday conflicts. And we can use this both to show parents models for how to handle things better and avoid negative ways of handling conflict. And also, we can learn more about kids' responses. So that's an important part of the picture. Now, what are some of the recent findings that might be of interest about marital conflict in children? One thing I often hear when I talk about this issue is that parents say, well, we try to avoid conflict in front of children. We don't have fights in front of our children. Now, actually, it's been relatively little work actually looking into this, whether this is true or not. So we have and relatively little is known about how parents act in front of children out of conflict. And using our, I guess I'll mention the background first. There's been some recent pioneering work looking at conflict in the laboratory. Other research laboratories looked at it in the laboratory had either parents act out conflicts in front of children or just between the two of them, the parents weren't there. And what would you think would happen? What they found was, when children were in the room, parents toned down their conflicts. They had a much more muted version of the conflicts than when the parents were interacting with each other. So the idea then was that people didn't really know how much conflict occurred in front of children, but thinking was that it was toned down in front of kids. Well, this new methodology we developed with having parents actually report on what happens in the home during everyday conflicts. And you can train parents to just as good as observers and researchers to just tell them what to look for. We actually found that it's true that parents actually do have, most of their conflicts are not in front of the children. They are successful at this about 2/3 of the time, are not in front of the children. But when parents do have fights in front of the children, we find by looking at this in the home, actual home environment, the conflicts are actually more negative than when their parents are just talking to each other behind closed doors. In fact, they're more angry, they're more distressed, the forms of conflict are more hostile, and so forth. So this is an example of findings that go against the common wisdom. And parents are actually having more negative versions of conflict when the children are present. We think what's happening is this. Parents mean to not have conflict in front of their kids. When they do, it's often because they are really upset. They haven't really been able to think through, I'm not going to have this in front of the children. Not have these fights with the kids. And so the fights are more negative. Okay? And oftentimes they're about the kids. And this is because sometimes when parents have some of the most negative fights, it's arguing about something to do with what the children are doing. And then the kids are right there. So in fact, what we found in our work is that the most negative conflicts actually occur in front of children. Many of them don't, but those that do are actually among the most negative, which is, I think, an important finding for people to think about with regard to everyday conflict in kids. Another recent finding is we looked at the impact of resolution of conflict. Okay, what is the impact when a conflict is resolved that parents are having? We actually find evidence that conflict is like a wonder drug for kids to see. And actually benefit tremendously by seeing the resolution. So, children, even for very negative conflicts, if they see a resolution, it's beneficial. Children don't necessarily care about whether parents are fighting or not. Children are not like little, plastic dolls, whatever it is phrase. It's not plastic, but porcelain. That's right. Porcelain figures. They'll break if they see conflict. Children have conflicts of their own. They're used to seeing other people have conflicts. They watch television. They know conflict occurs in the world. That's not the issue. What children care about is the security and well-being of the family. Okay? They care about how well the parents are getting along and how well the family is functioning. They care about how well the parents are getting along because it has implications for them. Okay, it affects the parenting they're going to receive. Whether parents are sensitive or responsive enough to them because they're not caught up in their own conflicts. Whether parents can manage the family relationships in a good way. Whether parents have discipline practices that are reasonable and so forth. But kids also care about the parents per se. Regardless of any self-interest, they care about the parents being happy. They love their parents. They want to see the parents doing well. And that's something sometimes gets lost in the shuffle when people analyze how kids react to parents in the family. By itself, kids just care that parents are happy. Now, when a resolution of conflict occurs, that says to the child, okay, they had a disagreement, but they worked it out, they're fine. Everything's okay. And so for a child, even if the conflict is relatively intense, that makes a whole world of difference. And we've shown this in study after study, that if there's a resolution of conflict, it makes a big difference. And it washes away the negativity. Again, kids aren't like, oh, you can't have negative events in front of kids. Or if they can't take it, it's not the point. The kids care about the family. They care about the parents. The stability of the family is also implicated. It's not that they care about whether there's fighting or not. Now, the question I get is, well, what about when parents have to act this out in front of kids? Or can kids is it possible for the children to learn about resolution some other way? We looked into that because that's an important question. I mean, you can't just go home and say, listen, Dr. Cummings said we got to work this out in front of the children so they can see the resolution. That can be artificial. You don't really want to introduce artificial elements of the family either. What do the kids understand about these matters? We've actually found that the parents work it out later, just indicate a few words. They worked out some really horrible fight the kids might have seen earlier. The children are totally resolved about this typically, okay? They feel fine about it. Again, it's because it's not so much the fighting's happening with father's children. The families differ a lot in this. I mean, some families are very demonstrative and just loud, and some are quiet, kind of like maybe when they feel angry, they see it a little bit or whatever. They're different styles. Kids understand that. The bottom line is how well people are actually getting along, not whether they're fighting or how they're fighting. So if parents tell the kids to work that out, again, that's very beneficial effects. We've actually taken this a step further since it's such an important question for understanding, how kids react to conflict. We've looked at another question, which is what about the common scenario of going behind closed doors? Other parents go behind closed doors to work out disagreements. They're very angry. They think, well, our child is here. We better go talk about it in the room. Well, the kids understand what happens there if you worked it out. Well, in fact, they can. We've actually found, even for very young children, like 4 and 5-year-olds, they see the parents go behind the closed doors, having a conflict, and they come out and look okay with it. The kids understand that. It's as if they saw the resolution for itself. The parents now are talking amicably. We've actually interviewed kids, and they said, well, they worked it out behind closed doors. I mean, and actually, we'll even say when they go behind closed doors, they think, well, actually tell you, they think they might be trying to work things out. So fortunately, if you're getting along with your spouse, if you're getting along in your relationships, kids don't need a lot of help, understanding that. They can infer it from a variety of signals. What are some of the other recent findings that about marital conflict that are important to recognize? Well, one major predictor of children's problems, another major predictor, is depression in parents. Now, depression in parents can cause a variety of problems, and it's one of the most common mental health problems. So it's a definite phenomenon in our families and our lives. It's something we need to recognize. And even, there's clinical levels of depression, but there's depressive symptomatology, many of us confront and have. And what is it that means for the family-marital relationship? Well, actually, depression and marital conflict are highly correlated, highly related. It's hard in a marriage when there's depression, and so there's a relationship between depression and marital conflict. That's important to recognize that problem, that there are special challenges when there's depression. And marital support can be helpful. Partner supporting the depressed person can be important for the depressed person, but also for the child. Children of depressed parents are 6 to 8 times likely, clinically depressed parents, to develop some sort of adjustment plan. Okay? But the traditional view is to look at how that affects the relationship between the parent-child relationship, the depressed person and the child. Okay? And that can be affected by depression. But actually, a more powerful relationship in some ways is the relationship between depression and the interparental relationship. It can be really difficult in the relationship, and that can affect the children even more than problems of parenting. Like, mothers might be able to very well maintain a relationship with their child, even though they have problems with depression. It's easier to maintain that but it's more difficult perhaps potentially with fathers too, the parent and the relationship of the partner. So we find that that's an important factor in the impact of depression is the impact of the marital conflict, marital relationship. But also it can be beneficial for the depressed parent if the partner is supportive. So it's important to look beyond just depression being linked with child adjustment problems because of parent-child relationship problems, but also because of relationships in a marital relationship. Also, drinking problems. We know that drinking problems can be disturbing for children, and there's a tendency to think about drinking problems as being related to children's adjustment problems because of children's exposure to the drinking behavior. Seeing the various things that are linked with alcohol problems, being drunk or consistent or having fights and so forth. But actually the most disturbing elements of drinking problems is the parents fighting with each other. Children actually are not as upset by any means by just seeing parents having a problem with drinking. They're not happy about that. What really disturbs them, it gets to something else to think about and look at in relationships and families and know about. What really upsets them is the parents fight. Okay? And alcohol problems can lead to fight. Okay? It's a pretty good predictor of anger and aggression is an alcohol problem. This is often a problem that underlies the impact of parental drinking on children's adjustment. It's not a place, again, where people tend to look. They look more likely at maybe it disrupts the parenting relationship. Well, actually, recent research indicates it doesn't directly affect the parent-child relationship. Because the parent's drinking does not directly affect the parent-child relationship so much as it affects the marital relationship first. And if it affects the marital relationship, it's really easy for a spouse to be upset with the other spouse if they're drinking a lot. Then that affects the parent. That affects child adjustment. So if the parents can keep their relationship together, that can be a way to help that. But again, it's a pathway you don't need to think about as being important. And actually, father's drinking tends to disrupt mother's ability to be warm toward her child. That's another pathway that you don't think about. You might think, well, mother's drinking would. No, it's the father's drinking. So again, there's some more. The family is a much more of a many more elements of the family we tend to think about that affect children, and affect the well-being both of adults and children in families. It's not just the personal relationship between the parent and the child. It's broader than that. And really, fathers are very important to think about in families. We've been doing more and more work on emphasizing the role of fathers in families and finding out the significance of fathers in families. Now, fathers have been neglected in research on families. Much of the work in my area has been about the mother-child relationship. And certainly that's very important. But the father-child relationship is important too, but people haven't really studied it anywhere near the length as the mother-child relationship. And that's somewhat surprising, I think. But the common wisdom is that you can't get fathers to participate in research. We confronted that common wisdom when we started some major research projects 6 or 7 years ago on this big projects funded by external agencies. And we said we're going to study fathers, so we thought we better study them. So we went to a lot of effort to bring in fathers and mothers. We had a certain amount of trepidation about that, because we've been told you can't get fathers to do research. Only mothers are coming. Well, talking to you 6 or 7 years later, we've done several major studies with hundreds of families. Participation of fathers is about 98%. It's as high as mothers. If you work to get fathers in, they'll participate. And the same rate virtually as mothers. It might be like mothers 99%, fathers 98%. That's very, very close. Consequently, we've been able to learn a lot about father's role in the family. It's one of our major areas of work now, highlighting this because it has been so neglected, so we're trying to address this gap in understanding. All of our research includes fathers now, and it's really been very valuable. Now, what about marital conflict in fathers? Okay, there's some stereotypes here. Okay, there's a fight going on between the parents, and the thinking is that fathers' conflict is more upsetting than mothers' conflict behaviors. Now, this is a common wisdom, but no one actually looked at that recently. We looked at it, and we found, in fact, well, it depends. Okay. Now, it's the case if there's physical aggression involved. Children are more upset by seeing the fathers engage in physical aggression in marital conflict than mothers. But there are many other ways of fighting. Okay. There's a silent treatment. There's insult. There's defensiveness. There's threat. There's physical distress during conflict. There's many different elements. And all these other elements, we don't see kids more upset by fathers' behavior than mothers. In fact, it varies a lot. I mean, some types of conflict behaviors, I won't go into it now, the specifics, but some types are more upsetting when mothers do it. Are we up to date here on this? Oh, it's working.
Yes,
Okay.
partially.
Okay, so we should go back a little bit. Now, there's a general rule, though. Okay, we can talk about certain specific elements of fathers' behaviors that are different, but they're really not consistent. And we found this, we like to say this in other cultures too. Generally, fathers aren't more upsetting. Basically, it's very similar. Kids react similarly to mothers and fathers. When parents, either parent, engages in constructive conflict behavior, kids are happy about it. Neither parent engages in destructive conflict behavior, be it a whole variety of behavior you look at, kids are upset about it. Now, I might be report to you, well, kids are more upset when mothers engage in nonverbal conflict with fathers. I think that's a finding recently. But I don't want to overemphasize that because they find this negative form of behavior kind of like silent treatment upsetting when either parent does it. So if I say a little bit more to mothers and fathers, it's not really a very emphasis. So in other words, both parents conflict behaviors are important to consider, and both have very similar effects. And they both are factors in the family. I want to turn now to the checklist methodology that we use, because again, it goes against a common wisdom here, that you can't train parents. Now, how are you going to find out what's going on in the home? So this is a little bit, because it's kind of a soapbox, again, on that methodology in a sense. Now, if you want to know what goes on in the home, how can you do this? Okay? Well, you do laboratory studies, those have various strengths and advantages, but really what goes on in the home needs to be studied as well. You need to really focus on that, because that's the really important environment to know about these phenomena, what goes on in conflict. I mentioned earlier the finding about fighting in front of the kids being more intense than the exercise at the home, more negative. We found out by looking at this in the home. Now, in fact, you can train parents to be very good observers of what happens in the home. Okay? If you train parents to definition of conflict behaviors, like the topics that you give them a checklist, a one-page checklist, check what you did during conflict. They can learn these behaviors very well and be very reliable at it. And just as reliable at it as the research assistant would be. You train them for about an hour, as long as it's straightforward. If you check this happened, that happened, that happened, they're very good at it. And we've known actually they're very good at this type of thing. You train them for many years. Just people don't, I don't know how widely known it is, but the studies that looked at it have found this. So this is really important because this is a way you ask the parent, report what happens in the home after you have a fight, right after you do it. They tell you what afterwards. First of all, the knowledge of loss of memory that occurs can occur. Loss of information due to, memory error. But they can give very specific details, and we know they can be very good about this. So we've been able to learn a lot about emotion too. Like if you ask someone like in a questionnaire, how do these things occur? It could be a problem because, again, everything blends together. But if they do it right after the events occur, you get a much better picture of all these different elements, and we can get it very reliably. We've shown that. So this methodology then has gone a long way towards documenting the effects in everyday life of marital conflict on children and learning much, much more about it than we could learn before. Now here's another topic that's important. What about when fathers have psychological problems, like depression or anxiety or other types of problems? This has been virtually unstudied. For example, talk about depression in parents. Mostly it's looked at as maternal depression. I did a review of this research a few years ago. There have been hundreds and hundreds of studies of maternal depression, and virtually no studies about maternal depression. But fathers have been depressed too. Okay? Fathers have symptoms too of various types of problems. We need to understand that as well as mothers' problems. At some level, when you only look at mother's problems, it's like you're almost like blaming the mother for different things that go on. And you don't want to blame anyone, but you want to know the big picture, and both parents are important. And we're finding that the effects of psychological problems are very similar with fathers and mothers. In fact, when fathers have psychological problems, it has more impact actually in the marital relationship than when mothers do, and on the parent-child relationship. So fathers functioning in the family is more affected by psychological problems than mothers. Both parents are, though. I don't want to emphasize that. In both cases, it's important, but it's really important with fathers. Another direction we've pursued, we talk about a few more directions, but hopefully with the videotape going, you can see some of the actual scenarios of conflict that we use in our parent ed program. I'll talk about our applied program in a bit. But one other thing we're really interested in is looking at this stuff, these matters cross-culturally. Because most of the research on marital conflict in children until recently was all done in the United States. Now this is really valuable in the sense that, it's great we have this huge body of research in the United States and we have a lot of knowledge from that. But what do these things, is marital conflict important in other countries? Does it have the same effects or different effects? Other ethnic groups? We need to know these things to really understand what's going on here. What's the status? So we embarked at Notre Dame and really being kind of creative and trying to look at other countries. In Chile, actually had an undergraduate who was doing a junior summer in Chile. So he designed a study in Santiago on marital conflict with kids in a parallel sample in South Bend. We had a study. Okay, so that's an example of a relatively creative solution. We got some interesting results. Let's go back. In Israel, I had a doctoral student who was from Haifa. So she went back for a few months to study got some good findings from that about it. In other places, we had more formal relationships. I had a colleague in Wales who did a big study over a period of years. So in any case, what we found generally is that marital conflict affects kids in relatively similar ways across cultures. So it's a universal across cultures. So in Chile, or in Israel, or in Wales, or Northern Ireland, we found some of the basic principles I mentioned earlier and other basic principles apply. Okay? Kids are concerned about their parents' relationship, whatever culture they're in. And marital conflict tells us something about that. We also can see that they benefit from parents handling differences better in all these cultures. So they're actually happy about many ways parents handle conflict. You think, well, conflict is always the same. No, it's not. Because kids aren't looking to see whether parents are fighting. They're looking to see whether parents are working things out. Okay? Parents can have a pretty serious conflict, but they use problem solving and they have some positive aspect and they resolve it. Kids they say they're happy. I didn't say neutral. They're happy. They're happy about that, even though it's a conflict. You see this across cultures. So it's reassuring in that sense about some phenomenon. However, there are some cultural differences. Okay? In Chile, I don't have this up there, but I'll mention this first. In Chile, we find kids really in tune to what the resolution occurs. Okay? They're more sensitive to it than they are in this country. Now, most things are the same, or similar, but that's the difference. We don't know quite why. We think it might have to do with the cultural differences, emphasizing collectivity and so forth. In the U.S., in Israel, we're actually less sensitive to conflict resolution than here. You wonder whether that might be something to do with the backdrop culturally of conflicts being resolved and not maintained. We don't really know. By and large, there are similar effects, but that's one difference that was interesting. Okay, we have a theory then I want to mention briefly, and then we're going to get to the tapes in a minute. Our theory, though, I want to mention is that there's some findings here that are somewhat surprising. If you look at it in kind of a common sense way. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of psychology, I think my colleagues in psychology here, in fact, you'd be glad to make this point. A lot of it is not common sense. None of it is, I know it all along type of thing. And I used to teach social psychology at Western University. I used to have a quiz the first day. 32 false questions, and trying to dispel right off the bat that it's not all common sense. And in fact, the average score was around chance on these. And this is another case where it's not common sense. You might think kids who see a lot of conflict get used to it. That's the point I want to make here. Well, if you see a lot of conflict, don't they get used to it? Well, why is it then kids exposed to a lot of conflict in the home, a lot of neural discord, have many more adjustment problems? They're getting used to it. Well, we studied it very carefully. We developed a hypothesis, and I'll explain how this accounts for these matters. For children, a very important element is emotional security. They want to feel secure, okay? And I don't mean this as a simplistic way of being happy, but there's a variety of assessments indicate this. But a sense of security is very important. We've known that for a long time in parent-child relationships. Many of you have taken psychology or developmental psychology. You've probably heard of attachment theory. The attachment theory is about the importance of security in the parent-child relationship. We've known for 30 years or more that if kids are not secure in their parent-child relationship, attachment is secure, it's linked with adjustment problems and difficulties children have. Well, children, let me go back for a second, thanks. If children, the same thing applies for marital conflict. Now, I use the same model that you use in attachment theory, security. Children want to be secure, so that's here. Now, when parents are having destructive conflicts, that lowers their sense of security, okay? So that makes them more distressed. Now, if parents have a lot of conflicts, kids don't get used to it then because it lowers their sense of security. They feel less secure because of the constant conflict. They're worried about their parents breaking up. They're worried about their parents getting unhappy. They're worried about having a poor relationship with their parents. A lot of conflict in the family will undermine the relationship between siblings. So a lot of things to worry about. Realistically, kids can be worried if you see a lot of conflict. So don't get used to it. You don't get used to something that's threatening. Now, a child that sees a lot of conflict might not be surprised by it, but that's a different matter in how it affects the child emotionally. Okay? That's a different matter. It upsets children. It leads to distress. The kids trying to do extreme things to try to mediate parents' fights, or they might just get dysregulated, get very aggressive or upset themselves, and develop really negative images of themselves. They often blame themselves, and have negative image of their family. They don't find their family supported, a good environment for themselves. So attachment security is important in the parent-child relationship, but security is important in the marital relationship too. So when you see a lot of destructive conflict, it lowers their sense of security. Now, they don't just accept that. You'll see children in high conflict families doing things to try to make things better. Kids will try to help you parents. One way you know you have a lot of conflict is if your children are coming up trying to tell you guys how to get along better. Okay? That means they're upset. Kids won't do that just because, they feel like it. They're concerned. Okay? When kids are getting very upset, when you start to talk to your spouse, that's a sign they're insecure about how things are going. So that's our sort of theory then of what affects kids. We have a lot of support for it at this point. It helps bring things together. We know security is important in the parent-child relationship and also the marital relationship. Security in general is important. When we look at this in a pretty systematic way, I won't go into the details, but we look at emotional functioning. You can tell if kids are upset by something. Most of the conflict behaviors, their thinking patterns and behavior responses. We go through this. We know destructive conflict then has effects on children. We've documented, show its effects on security. It increases their emotional distress day to day. And think about it. If someone comes up to you and has a lot of conflict with, do you feel like pretty relaxed? No, right? They're approaching you, you think, uh-oh, it's a fight. You feel tense already. People study parents and marital, having marital discussions, that they find that blood pressure goes up even before they start to talk. Well, kids feel that way in the home. They feel tense when parents don't have a discussion. They're concerned about the family. They do extreme things to try to help out, and they're more likely to develop adjustment problems. So, just briefly, the next two slides, I can show you that we've looked at, tested the theory then, and we found that it predicts adjustment over time.
There is a model there.
It didn't show, okay, but anyway, we can show that it does affect, we looked, it's called longitudinal research, and it's been very supportive. So at this point, I want to turn to our applied program as our last element. That's the best way to show data, is like, you can't dispute this, can you? Oh, it's there now? No. Okay. Anyway, you have to take my word for it in this one. It is very supportive of the model. So we have outreach programs now. We've taken this knowledge. I mentioned some of it. We want to make it accessible to parents, but we don't want to just make it a burdensome program. We want it to be efficient. We want to have really good information, but briefly presented in a format that is really enjoyable to the parents and can reach a wide range of families. A typical way of approaching marital conflict problems is to wait until parents have serious problems. You come to a therapist. Okay, you might be able to help them then. Sometimes you definitely can help them, but it can be expensive. It's hard to rewind the clock on these things after conflicts after negative. Our approach is prevention. Our idea is that parents can give them information, they can use it. And wide groups of parents can be helped by this information, because many people are at a point where they can really benefit. There's not a clock to be rewound, things that have negatively made it happen. Yeah, so we can help them go on a positive course. Prevention, outreach, good information presented in a really enjoyable way. And purpose then is to teach parents about the effects of conflict, teach them how to recognize the different types of constructive and destructive, which we know from research, teach us ways to talk to each other. These are acted out in various ways. They're very lively and engaging ways. Work together as a team. Also some things about parenting. We have facilitators like grads, and a lot of this work. Graduate research associate in my group. So a lot of this work with families, going through demonstrating points, and parents try it out at home. We come back. We have coaching sessions, videotape presentations of good examples and not so good examples, homework activities, and I think we have one more slide here. And we're doing some actual very rigorous, what we call in scientific community, rigorous demonstrations of this. We don't just say, oh, we think it's a good program, therefore we can use it. We do what's called, we actually doing like the drug studies, they do those randomized clinical trials. We're doing that with our program. We randomly assign people to groups. We have pre-test assessments, how they're doing. We see how they're doing afterwards. We see how they're doing. We watch their behavior. We don't just give them questionnaires. Watch their behavior. Right afterwards, okay, does the effect last? Is it good? Does it help them 6 months later, a year later? It's a 4-visit program. And it affects the program was very promising to this point. So, with that introduction, I turn this over to Brad Fairclough, who is a postdoc in our program, who does a lot of this work. And we're just going to show you some of the examples of conflicts and show parents examples of good and not so good ways of handling it. To give you an illustration of some of the points we're making. So Brad, I'll turn it over to you. I'm hoping the video audio visuals will work. Okay, well, we're going to show you an example of a constructive way of handling this. We have professional actors, and they're really quite good, and destructive ways. So we want to be we're very concrete. Like, what does it look like to have a good constructive conflict and a destructive conflict? How do kids respond to this? We want to give information that's very reliable and very visual. It's just part of the program. And this depicts very clearly the messages we're trying to communicate. Does anyone have any questions at this point before I show the videos while they're being constructed here? Yes.
So, if the marriage doesn't work out and the parents get divorced, are the children still, is the complex still bothering them?
How does it bother children after divorce? That's an excellent question. Sometimes people think, well, divorce will get rid of the conflict. That's not the case many times. Okay, conflict can continue. In fact, the strongest predictor, the best predictor of how well will go after divorce is how well the parents who used to be married aren't married anymore get along. They get along well, children do relatively well. They don't do well, that children have problems. That's the biggest source of problems, is particular conflict. In some families, some people who work partners aren't anymore, you continue that animosity for many, many years. continue to affect the children's behavior. So it remains important. It's almost better, it's like, to really handle it optimally, you need to do things that wouldn't have divorce in the first place, in terms of handling things better and understanding and so forth. But anyway, it seems to be important. That's good. Do you have them?
Have to bear with me just a little bit. We're going to use the speakers from the card up here. So I will start the video. If anybody's not here, just let me know. So one of the methodologies that we use to teach parents about destructive, constructive behaviors are the analog videos that Dr. Cummings mentioned earlier. We had a husband and wife acting team come into our lab and record some of these videos for us. And this first example is the story stem. That's how their conversation or argument starts. And these are behaviors that we would encourage parents not to use when handling conflict.
A little help would be nice.
Oh, did you remember to pick up some ground beef like I asked you to?
No, I had so many other things to get, so I forgot.
Then how am I supposed to make dinner? You can't make hamburgers without ground beef. You are so forgetful. You have the worst memory. How hard is it to pick up one thing?
Look, I make supper for this family every night, and you never go and pick up any of the ingredients I ask you to. In fact, you never do any of the shopping.
Yeah, whatever.
Don't you whatever me. Look, you never do any of the shopping, and I want to talk about this now.
It's not my fault. I work 40, 50 hours a week so we can afford to go shopping. When I come home, I want to relax. I don't have time to go grocery shopping.
Okay, when is it my time to relax? You know, I never stop. I go 24 hours a day.
What we would do after that video clip is just stop. We're in a room of about 5 families and myself, and we'll just go around the room and talk about behaviors that we're seeing. For instance, the physical aggression against an object, mom slamming the door. I don't know if anybody noticed, but the child who was putting groceries away at the time spun around, gave kind of the deer in headlights response, was very concerned about what was going on, and then continued to do what she was doing after she saw that relatively okay. This next clip would be a series of behaviors that we would encourage our parents to use. We think this is a very constructive way of handling this discussion.
Like I said, I like to relax when I get home. I can't take you nagging. I just want to relax.
Oh, Sarah, I thought you went upstairs.
Did you hear us fighting, honey? Don't worry. We'll work this out. This has nothing to do with you. Come over here and watch TV with your dad.
You know, Daddy's right. Grown-ups fight sometimes, but that doesn't mean that we don't love each other.
Really help with the emotional security for the child. First of all, they told her it was not her fault, that they were going to work on a solution together. Some mommies and daddies fight sometimes, and they still love each other and they love her. So in terms of the child's emotional security, even though there's no resolution to the topic here, she's definitely going to benefit from them telling her that about the conversation. Here would be another constructive example of how to handle that conflict.
I thought this was about dinner tonight, not your decision to be a stay-at-home mom. You're blowing this whole thing out of proportion.
Look, maybe you're right, but it's still something I think we should discuss. Look, I'll make dinner, the kids are starving. I think there's a chicken in the freezer, but I do want to talk about this later.
You're right. We should talk about it. I want to discuss it too. And it's probably better to have something to eat and calm down first. That chicken sounds good.
Chicken sounds great. I'm starving. What's wrong?
Good thing. We're going to calm down first and then talk about it again later. And the child knows that they are working on a solution to the problem, which again is going to be something that will help strengthen her emotional security. This last step is, again, a series of constructive behaviors that we would encourage parents to use.
What's wrong? Why are you fighting?
Don't worry, honey. Mommy and I just need to talk.
Okay, Daddy.
Why don't we go into the other room and finish talking about this? You're right. I'm glad we talked about this. I feel so much better now. I love you.
I love you too. And you know, making dinner together is a great compromise. How about if you make the pasta and I'll make the salad?
I'll set the table.
There was just talking going on. As Dr. Cummings said earlier, in this instance, the child didn't witness the resolution whatsoever. In fact, they didn't talk about it at all. She was able to infer that a resolution took place. Mom and Dad went behind closed doors, pretty mad at each other, came out acting very happy about the situation. There was some hand-holding. You can see that the child was clearly happy about the situation. So again, things that we would encourage parents to do when conflict comes up. And thank you very much.
One thing I want to emphasize, in case the questions, is that people talk a lot about psychological adjustment, neural conflict, and divorce, and so forth. And these elements are affected by conflict and divorce. But it's beyond the issue of whether people have psychological adjustment problems. The broader issue is the well-being of the family, well-being of children, well-being of adults, whether it's clinical problems or not. And these matters of family, they get just more constructively in a more loving manner, and the family are important to well-being and enjoyment of life, regardless of whether you have clinical problems or not. I think there's been overemphasis on clinical diagnosis, but beyond that, people are resilient, you can't cope, but their health and well-being is affected, especially their emotional well-being. A lot of these matters, these are important. People enjoying life, living most out of life. It is also linked in certain portion cases with risk of adjustment problems. So at this point, I'd like to close. And is there any last questions here? Or?
I have one.
Yes.
62-year-old grandfather, 3 sons, 3 daughter-in-laws. They all live out of Allen County. What is my role in this family relationship? What should I be doing as a grandfather?
Well, I think grandparents can play an important role in supporting their children, supporting relationships with their children, and so closely with their grandchildren. They can be a very important, positive relationship in the family. And we've done work with grandparents too, how they respond to the parents' conflicts. And we find that grandparents are upset by their children having conflict in their relationships too. So it affects you as well. You can affect them. They affect you as well. So you're a big part of the family. You make the same kind of contribution. I think one thing we found though is that whereas if you look at them, once they look at adult children, how they felt when their parents were fighting, and they tend to want to intervene and say something to their parents. So grandparents tend not to want to say anything, but they want to say something. That's one difference in doing it. Yes.
Earlier you were talking about how and I can see how the constructive conflict would work, but how would you do that in a situation where, I mean, I can see that working most of the time, but how do you do that when, you know, the anger is a little bit out of control? How do you keep from getting to that point?
Well, how do you keep from getting that point even after you've done it?
Either or.
Either or.
Yeah, how are you able to do the constructive once you've already gone too far?
Well, I think when you constructive conflict styles, first of all, know what those are. A lot of misinformation out there about that. It's hard to watch like talk shows and so forth, recommendations about handling everyday differences like pricing, the recommendation, get your anger out, and work that therapy, say what you're thinking. Don't do that, okay? Don't have unbridled anger expression. Try to modulate it. But if you have gotten angry, again, children and spouses aren't forceful, okay? You can explain, I'm sorry, I'm angry. Let's try to work on this better next time. And, you know, this works. Let's try to find some other solutions to this problem other than being angry. And that's fine. Kids understand that. Your spouse understands that. So it can all be remediated, but just try to learn to recognize the signals of it going too far. Yes?
You know, the studies of the biological parents, but it's very involved with step families or mixed families. And marital conflict between biological and stepfather.
It gets complicated when we get into the different types of relationships. But conflict behaviors have similar effects across relationships. So the same message about constructive and destructive conflict are important. The children have different senses of concern about the biological parent versus step-parent, depending on what kind of relationship they have with them. Okay? So the sense of security might be more effective by one relationship than the other. But it would depend on the nature of that relationship. Children can form close relationship with non-biological parents as well, and do many times. Yes?
Has research focused on the development of post-traumatic stress disorder in children that have been exposed to destructive conflict, and to what degree does that have to, the destructive conflict have to get to in order to lessen something like that?
Well, post-traumatic stress disorder is linked primarily with violence in relationships, relationships. It's a real extreme forms of conflict. What's that?
Physical violence?
Typically. But we found that children can be just as upset by some types of psychological stress. Like parents threatening to leave the family if you hear that, be very distressing. But there are biological effects more generally of these everyday behaviors, you know, good and more negative. Like children sleeping disrupted by parents having constant conflict. This kind of, as you know, sleep is very important. They undermine their schoolwork and so forth. And we see effects on, you know, sort of technical measures of biological function like vagal tone and heart rate and cortisol response and so forth. That's true of all our interpersonal behaviors. We're not we're biological beings, so there is, in a sense, of just charting what we see behaviorally too. There are effects on how we function. A lot of distress, we would have trouble sleeping too. There's stress with our spouse and so forth. That can happen. You get sick or something, or, you know, and so forth. So there are biological effects. Yes?
In your outreach programs that you've been doing with families and couples, or happy couples, advocates, is it early enough or too early to tell the measure of difference that it makes for those who participate in that program versus the constant or your
we have a control group, and control groups, we find significant differences. Well, we're doing our second study. We actually found in the first study, with one visit, we condensed a lot of valuable information about handling differences. We saw positive benefits on marital function 1 year later, which kind of amazed us. And now we have a much bigger program, we're charting a lot more different elements, including how to fix children's adjustment, parent adjustment, and so forth. And, okay. And you see these effects right away on like observed parents interacting right after the program. You see huge differences in how they handle everyday differences right after, like you videotape it. That's immediate. But we're seeing longer term effects like on parent adjustment and shoulders later, like 6 months later. So some of the positive benefits occur over time as parents enact these behaviors. But we haven't really finished some major studies yet to look at all these things forward. But we have evidence, it's all in the right direction. Although with some variables, we're not seeing any difference yet, others are, but they're beneficial directions.
Thank you.
Yes.
The subject of divorce and young children, is there a way to compensate if the parents are not amicable to each other? Is there a way to track other family members maybe to compensate for that?
If the parents aren't amicable, compensate in what sense do you mean?
Another family that will somehow compensate?
Yes. Well, children benefit from support from other family members. And in the case of when parents have a problem, the other members can help support one of the partner. The same with children. This can help. Other, we call passion relationships being secure. That can help them cope with, yes. Yes.
If you had a parent that was abusive and it was just something that consistently going over a course of so many years, what would your recommendation be if that abusive parent is consistently showing expressive characteristics of the conflict that would you do?
Abusive physically?
In all aspects, emotionally, physically.
Well, that's one reason we try, I think, we're really emphasizing the prevention approach. Use many more people, much more cheaply and efficiently, that we help people before they have serious problems. It's very hard to turn back the clock in really serious abusive cases. Sometimes it's not really meaningful, it's really severe. But I wouldn't want to speak to your example, I don't know your example, but sometimes it can be very difficult to change. So people get very abusive, coercive cycles. They develop very distorted ways of thinking about each other. Okay? It's hard to convince them that they're not right about it. It's very negative distortions, like in a really hostile relationship, spouse comes home late, maybe they're working late. They try to tell the spouse that, and they know you were doing something else that wasn't appropriate. And it's hard to convince them. When in a positive relationship, I'm working late, oh, thank you for doing that to the family, that kind of thing. So, and there's physiological changes that occur toward each other too. People in abusive relationships are very tense about each other, even without saying anything. It's very easy for things to become negative. So we're emphasizing prevention because we hope to help people before they get to this level. And we're hopeful that this can make a difference. Yes?
Does your program do or plan to do any research on children that are in confrontational violence?
Cohabitation? What do you mean by cohabitation?
People that aren't married.
They're married. Yeah, our program is open to parents coming in with a stable relationship that aren't married, too. So we don't really draw a line on it. It's a relationship. We like to help them handle things and positive things. We don't look for are you married or many of our parents are married to someone else. Yes. Oh, sorry?
This guy right here, got it.
Any other questions?
I'd like to thank you all again for coming. I'd like to invite all of you for refreshments right outside the door as soon as it's over. I'd like to conclude by presenting Dr. Cummings our certificate of appreciation from the school. It's a very handsome looking class.